Hey loves, my name is Nicole Valentine. I'm a wellness and lifestyle entrepreneur. On my channel, I share about pregnancy, wellness, spirituality, and so much more. I also have an apothecary for my sea moss gel. Subscribe so you don't miss a beat. What's poppin', y'all? I'm back with another video and true life. I found out I have ADHD. Not for fake, for real. I got a serious diagnosis. I got I got an actual diagnosis. Previously, if you watched my video, I have a video with my boyfriend. We talk about if you watched my video, I have a video with my partner, and me and him talk about what it's like to be in a relationship with someone who has ADHD. And that was based off my self-diagnosis. And then literally like 3 weeks later, I got diagnosed. A little background about me, if you haven't been watching my other videos, but you better, I'm pregnant. And with being pregnant, I started to get more curious about my mental health and well-being, especially because pregnancy tends to exacerbate symptoms that are already there. And I already felt like I would always joke about having ADHD, feeling like I had ADHD brain, and come to find out, your girl does. And this is how I found out. So again, I could do the whole backstory of my life, and that probably would help, but I don't want this video to be long. And I'll probably just make other videos. But long story short, I was very smart when I was a kid, still very smart. Like, did I just shade myself? I was very smart as a kid. And with that being said, I loved school. I loved learning, did not like doing homework. I did like projects because I got more time to work with them. They were bigger box ideas and I like to do them, but I tend to also procrastinate. So I'd find myself doing projects late. When it came to schoolwork, I tend to get really good grades without having to really study, and that lasted up till college. Once I hit college, I started getting like C's, B pluses, but that's not cute because I was like an A mommy and a B plus mommy. So that's when I was like, okay, I probably do have to study, but then it felt like it was difficult. Like I couldn't focus. I lacked the focus to study, which is why I never thought I needed to. I tried to do as much as I can without it. And I remember actually, I had a college professor, shout out to Linda Cohen at FIT, and she probably won't remember, maybe she will, but I remember I did my thesis project, and after I presented my project, this is senior year of college, and I basically had to make a garment and show like the whole breakdown of it, the specificities, whatever. I graduated from production management at FIT. And with that, I remember falling asleep during the next person's project as they were going up. I fell asleep at some point, and I remember her coming over to me after and saying, Nicole, whatever you do, you have to really enjoy it. Like, you really do. And I think that was her kind of telling me like, this might not be the major for you because you're not engaged in this. And that was true, because when ADHDers are really into something, we tend to hyper-focus, and clearly I wasn't hyper-focused. I also was tired, to be fair. I did do an all-nighter before presenting, but her words stayed with me because it really resonated, and I knew that at the end of the day, it wasn't my passion. Fast forward to life happening. I got out of college, I started working at jobs, I sucked at the jobs. I mean, I was great in terms of like, I was always bringing new ideas. I was very sharp, very smart, very good at guiding, but I was not really great with timeliness. I was not really good with deadlines. I would procrastinate sometimes. And this, of course, caught up to me. I also wasn't really good in work environments. As an ADHDer, and specifically a Black ADHDer, I often got told I had an attitude problem when I'd be hyper focusing or when I just was overwhelmed. We tend to just like get quiet, or if we feel uncomfortable, especially if you're inattentive, if you're in a conversation with someone and it gets a little uncomfortable, you might find yourself distracted, like your mind kind of goes somewhere else, or maybe to where you're more comfortable. And then that person takes it as a microaggression. Oh, sorry, they take it as an offense. And what I ended up dealing with as a Black person in corporate America with ADHD is a lot of microaggressions. And it led to me getting a raise because I was so great at my job, but then months later getting fired because my boss wasn't messing with me. So with that, it was really, really frustrating because I had a huge sense of failure. Because for me, when I would do these jobs, although I wasn't necessarily the timeliest employee, and when I say like not the timeliest, I'm talking about anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes late. But to me, if I'm like doing all the work and I'm staying late if I have to, I'm there past 5, I don't know. But I think that compiled with the hyper focus, the inattentiveness, people felt like, an attitude. And I'm sure at some points I might have, no one's perfect, but I do feel a huge part of it was that attention deficit disorder, and also the hyperactivity, the needing for my mind to go somewhere else or race. And with that, I just felt like that was just my life, my experience. So now let's fast forward to the pandemic. So in the pandemic, I met my boyfriend. Well, right before the pandemic, I met him and we fell in love, as the story goes. And during the pandemic, we shacked up together. It just made sense, right? For us, at least. And it worked. But with that, it brought a lot of our differences, especially cultural and just like cognitive differences up. And that's when he realized, just spending time with me in the past year and a half, you might have ADHD. You have symptoms of someone who has ADHD. He had a friend or has a friend who has ADHD. He spoke to her about it, and he would tell her about my behavioral patterns or things I would do, or that sometimes I would kind of come off careless. And what it really was that I got distracted easily. I wasn't careless. I actually would beat myself up, which is another ADHD symptom, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. I would beat myself up because I was like, how did I forget that? How did I not do that? And what that ended up turning to is us having to have a real conversation about it once I became pregnant. Because like I said, if you went back 7 minutes ago, with pregnancy, anything that you are experiencing, especially mental health wise, will be exacerbated. So as I found out I was pregnant, I was like, okay, this is not something that is a theory anymore. I really probably should get the help I need so that I can not only just focus, so I can get the things I need to get done during pregnancy, right? Because I'm learning that pregnancy comes with so much, like your whole life changes. And it's beautiful. Love you, boo. It's beautiful, but it's also really overwhelming, and it's a lot. And when you are already dealing with rejection sensitivity and all or nothing and hyper focus and fidgeting, and your mind just can't be settled, and anxiety, because ADHDers tend to deal with anxiety and depression very often, because we procrastinate and then we feel crappy and then we rush and then we put all this extra pressure on ourselves to perform. And a lot of us are very smart, we're perfectionists, we're highly intelligent, but we just have a different way that our brain works. So again, I have severe ADHD. That's what I was diagnosed with. So as you notice, as I'm talking through this video, I will jump around, and I'm just gonna say, try to follow with me as much as you can. I'm very conversational, and I'm just gonna go as my mind goes, and I hope it's very clear for you guys. But yes, as all of that happened, I realized I need to get help. And between my partner and also my doula, they were able to really help me get the help I needed. It's very hard to get a diagnosis, especially during the pandemic, even though we're kind of now like at the trail end of it, just because everything is telehealth now. No one's in these offices because ain't nobody trying to work because everyone figured out the game, right? So I'm over here trying to get a diagnosis. I'm calling all the places on my insurance listing that my doula gave me. None of the places are, some of them aren't responsive. A lot of them don't even take my insurance. So I'm like, why were y'all on the list to begin with? And then a lot of the psychologists and psychiatrists that were working at these places, they quit. They were like, ooh, we going remote, we going out, we done. We not doing this, we not staying here. So with that, I went through so much, like weeks of just like researching on top of just like pregnancy life, just trying to find a therapist. Well, I landed on this place called Epiphany Counseling, and it ended up being an amazing pairing because that's how I met my now therapist, psychologist. I think she's a psychologist. I only looked at a list for psychologists. So I don't think she's a psychiatrist, which is another thing I'm looking into because I'm pregnant. Again, I'm going to be going into postpartum soon. And I want to make sure I get all the help I need, but also have all the resources. So not just like behavioral therapy, but possibly medication. And that's something I'm looking to explore. But how the actual diagnosis happened was I got paired with this woman, my psychologist, and we talked, we had a few sessions. I was very particular about wanting a Black woman just because I wanted someone who looked like me, understand me, can relate to me, to help me. And I'm grateful because I was able to get one. And I just felt like, it felt like an episode of a Black lady sketch show. Like the court scene when they're like, yeah, we all Black, we here. I don't know what they was doing, but you get the vibes. Sorry, I'm moving around because I get a little achy. Circulation is key when you're pregnant. But with that being said, and I always want these videos to be shorter and they end up being super long, but y'all gonna understand. And let me get them watch times, them watch minutes, you feel me? But see, I had a brain fart. So I had a teacher, this is a side note, some ADHD shit, but I had a teacher in high school named Mr. Safe. He was British. All the girls loved him. Hey, Mr. Safe. But what was really funny is that when he would forget a thought, he would say, you knocked me off my choo-choos. So to this day, I say, you knocked me off my choo-choos if I forget a thought and I'm in the middle of talking to somebody. So if you're ADHDer, say that, and that's a way to get a laugh in while you try to figure out what else you needed to say. But my psychologist, after maybe 2 sessions, she wanted to talk about, you know, like kind of like narrowing down what's the goal of therapy, why do I want to do this, why am I here, etc. And I told her I'm pregnant and I really want to know if I have ADHD. Well, she got the DSM-5, which is the, oh man, I should know the name of this, but it's basically like a book that diagnoses mental disorders. I'm not saying it like in the way, yeah. It's a book that diagnoses mental disorders, and it's the 5th edition of it. And this is a book that psychiatrists and psychologists use to see if you have enough symptoms to qualify you as having a certain disorder, right? So I went through the book with her. She read off symptoms to me. She asked me questions, and I kid you not, she would say things like, do you tend to forget your keys or forget things when you leave your house? Has this been something you've done in the last 6 months? So that would kind of be like the phrasing of something that they ask you. Did you find yourself going back and to going back and forth to get things, etc. And I just would bust out laughing because I'm like, yo, I literally left the house 3 times just 2 days ago doing that, just to go take my dog on a walk. I was like, oh, I forgot my doggy bags for him. Oh, I forgot my Apple Watch. I can't walk without my Apple Watch because how are they gonna know that I walked that day? You feel me? So with all that happening, I was just in and out. So I'm being silly about this because I just couldn't believe how spot on this DSM diagnostic list was to my symptoms. And I had these symptoms longer than 6 months, and I was able to even prove like some of the things that she was asking me. I was even thinking back to childhood things and how I still have certain patterns now. I've gotten much better because I self-diagnosed before having this diagnosis with her, but the self-diagnosis really helped me to do more research. When I self-diagnosed, ooh, I'm running out of breath. That's the pregnancy. When I self-diagnosed, that was when I decided to start watching YouTube videos like How to ADHD's channel, which I really, really love. She looks like Kimmy Schmidt and she's so sweet. I feel like if you met her, she'd be like the sweetest girl. So go check her out. Also, I started just like watching productivity hacks and like learning like more of a minimalist lifestyle. I really love Marie Kondo. Ironically, I was almost casted for one of her first show. Happy that didn't work out though. I think the people who got casted were deserving. But what I did learn is that it's important for ADHDers to only have the things they need in their sight, if possible, or keep things as minimal as possible so that they can see the things they need. We battle with something called object permanence, which means if we don't see it, we don't pay attention to it, we forget it's there. And as an ADHDer, I've realized throughout my life, there's a lot of things I'll accumulate because I don't realize it's there. And this has negatively affected me with my finances because I find myself buying things multiple times, not realizing I already own it, like 3 bottles of ketchup. My work life has been negatively affected by ADHD because ADHDers tend to have a much harder time keeping a job. We just are growing up living and working in environments that are not conducive for our brains, right? And that doesn't mean that we can't work or figure it out, but it does mean that we have to do a little extra work to understand, one, how we think, and then also set systems up to help us like navigate. So there's another account, especially if you are a Black ADHDer. I think it's like, I can't remember. It's something lost keys. Because she, I guess the joke is because she lost her keys, and she's a Twitter account, but I'm also going to add her information here because I feel like she would be someone to learn a lot from, especially if you find out you have ADHD. And for me, finding out I have severe ADHD, I think that, and for me, finding out I had severe ADHD, it really came as a shock. I laughed, yes, during the diagnosis. I was laughing the whole time because I felt comfortable, but also I felt seen. But then right after, I went through a period of shock because it was severe ADHD and I thought I had just like inattentive and maybe mild. And to find out it's severe and I also have just as much almost hyperactive symptoms, it doesn't look like what you think hyperactivity looks like. Hyperactive symptoms can look like pacing. It can look like talking really fast. It can look like your mind racing. So it doesn't always have, or it could look like fidgeting. Like right now you see me moving my hands, I gesture a lot. It doesn't always have to look like someone bouncing around. I think when I think of hyperactivity, I think of like a little kid on candy. That's not what adult ADHD looks like. So finding out I not only had the hyperactive symptoms, but the inattentive symptoms, and then also on top of that, all this is severe, I was like, yo, what is my life? And I'm pregnant. I think when it hit me, I just felt like, oh my gosh, like this is so overwhelming. So you mean this whole time, had I been diagnosed, I'm 30 years old. So I'm like, you mean this whole time, had I been diagnosed at like 10, like some of these white kids, because they began diagnosed early, because they have the resources. And also mental health is more spoken about in the white community compared to the Black community and probably other minority communities. You don't get the help you need. And especially as a woman, right? I think when boys have ADHD, it's also more noticeable because the hyperactivity tends to be them bouncing around the room. When a girl might be more inattentive, or those are the qualities that might show up. It might come up as, oh, she talks a lot in class, or she's smart, but she doesn't really need to study. Well, she doesn't need to study. And then it becomes she doesn't study and she needs to study, you know? So with that, I feel now sorry, I'm getting distracted by people out the window. By that, I feel very now affirmed. I feel amazing because I know that, wow, Nicole, your intuition's right. You believed this was it. And then you got told, no, you're really right. You're not just right, you're a little right, you right. So with that, it felt good afterwards. It was hard, maybe for like the first week. I still think I'm gonna have moments of like, I felt a lot of regret, like my life could have been so different, or this is why I struggle with jobs, and this is why I struggle with this. And now I'm like, no, you have a new lease on life. This is why you became an entrepreneur. This is why you study things and you teach things that you really love, like human design and astrology and self-care and wellness, because those are the things you like to hyper focus on. And now you're not stuck in a job that prioritizes, you know, you falling in line to what they have going on, but you can actually create the life you want. And I've seen ADHDers do it. They use their platforms to talk about ADHD, and not saying that your whole life, it now has to be your personality, identity, and your whole life has to be about it. But what I am saying is that it really does open doors. It's like unlocking another level of yourself when you understand, oh, this is me and this is what I have, and this is how I can navigate it. So that is my long story on my ADHD diagnosis. And I wanted to share it because I just feel like I don't see enough of me on YouTube talking about ADHD. And I feel like a lot more people are coming to the realization they have it, particularly women. So I wanted to just make a little video about my experience, and also why it's important to get that diagnosis, because I think even with a self-diagnosis, it's always still gonna be, well, maybe I'm not. Or you could just go through an emotional wave or a change in your life and then not pay much attention to it, or you don't prioritize doing the things you need to do to create systems for yourself because it's just a self-diagnosis. I remember actually the first time I told a friend, I think I have ADHD. I was actually really serious about it. This was 2 years ago about, and maybe 3. And she just dismissed it and kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, girl, I think I got that too. Da, 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 da. And it was just kind of like, whatever. And I'm like, no, I seriously think that my brain works differently. I was like trying to tell her. And honestly, she might have ADHD too. But in that moment, I didn't feel seen, heard, or validated, right? It felt kind of dismissive. But with this, and with sharing this video with others, I'm hoping that you guys can feel seen, heard, validated, and also, you know, made aware that if you really want to know the answers as to why you are the way you are, and you are diligent about getting the help that you need, it will come to you. I promise. That's how the universe works. Because I started getting really diligent about, okay, I want to find the answer to this. And then between my doula, between my boyfriend, between calling a lot of places and leaving voicemails, I did. And I'm grateful because now I can make this video and be like, nah, y'all, I really got it. And this is how I could help y'all. So if you want more videos on ADHD, talking about different topics, I'm always going to share from the lived experience. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a lot of accolades. I got accolades, but not those accolades, worldly accolades. So with that, I love to just share from my experience. I do have a lot of knowledge and background in a lot of different topics, and I think just an emotional intelligence and general understanding about life. I also minor in psychology. That's one of my little accolades in college. So with that, I've always had a fascination for the human brain, our motivations, why we are the way we are and what we do. And again, that's why I created this video for you guys. So feel free to comment below and share with me your ADHD experience. You can also tell me if you're diagnosed and if it's self-diagnosed or not. And also just share more about who you are. I love to know who wants to watch my videos, where you guys are from, what your life is like, what y'all like to eat, because I'm greedy, you know? So put all that down below. Comment, subscribe if you like this video and want to see other videos like this. And I love you guys. Until the next one.